Welcome to Law Next PR, the podcast where we put a spotlight on the latest news coming out of the legal tech industry. This is Bob Ambrogi, and in each sponsored episode of Law Next PR, I interview a legal tech company about its latest news and developments. Today, we're talking about a new AI product released by Briefpoint called Autodoc that automates discovery drafting. Joining me to discuss it is the CEO of Briefpoint, Nathan Walter. Nathan, good to see you.
Good to see you again, Bob. Great to be here.
Nathan, obviously, I want to talk about the news, talk about what you've just announced here. But before we do any of that, for anybody who's listening right now who may not be familiar with Briefpoint, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, Briefpoint automates discovery responses and discovery requests. So we take PDFs of your opposing counsel's discovery, and then we give you a Word document downloaded where we have the entire response captioned, formatted, and everything. And we're just laser focused on effectively eliminating discovery work. And in the outgoing sets, we also automate as well.
Yeah, and you've covered, I know, requests for admission, requests for production, interrogatories. What about jurisdiction-wise? What states and courts do you cover?
Yeah, so we are in all 50 states, DC, and all 98 district courts.
All right. So you are announcing the release of Autodoc. What is Autodoc? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Autodoc is a system where you can upload a production file or a case file into Briefpoint, and then we'll take all of your opposing counsel's requests for productions, find all the documents that are responsive to each request, and then use those documents to write a substantive answer to each request, and then also provide our user with a Bates numbered production package they can give to opposing counsel. So instead of getting an RFP from opposing counsel, collecting the documents from the client, seeing what documents are relevant and sort of doing that standard eDiscovery filtering, and then finding the relevant ones, and then with the relevant ones, organizing them by the request to write a response and Bates number them. Instead of that, you just upload the case file into Briefpoint, you upload your opposing counsel's request, and you download a Word document where all the answers and objections are already there. So it's eliminating that entire process in one fell swoop at the rate of 2 to 15 seconds per request.
Sounds pretty amazing. I know that you already had some capability for responding to requests for production in terms of stating objections or that sort of thing. How is this different than what you were already able to do?
Right. So the workflow now is you can click suggest, we'll automatically object to the request and fill in your objections. We can collect responses from clients. What we have now is in the interface where you're drafting a response in Briefpoint, there's a button called Find Documents. And you click that, and then we search through the case file and we say, okay, here are all the responsive documents. And we add a substantive response stating, plaintiff will produce all documents that are in its possession, custody, and control at these Bates numbers. And we cite all the Bates numbers of the responsive documents, which is a pretty onerous task to do on its own. And with Briefpoint, we draft the actual substantive portion of the response.
And is this actually replacing kind of basic eDiscovery review? Is this a substitute in terms of determining what documents are relevant or what documents might be privileged?
So that's a really good question. And the short answer is no, but the reason it's no is a little bit more complicated because eDiscovery is your relativities, your logicals, Everlog, et cetera. And you would only approach these vendors if you have a case with millions and millions of documents, generally, just because of the cost and the implementation and all that other stuff. And the goal of eDiscovery is to find relevancy in these documents. With our system, because it's just tons of large language models working to do small things and make a big thing in the aggregate, we don't recommend using Autodoc for cases that exceed 100,000 documents. And I think the fact that we're 1,000th of the cost of eDiscovery at least I think that's fine. We're okay with that. It might work. We just haven't tested it with those huge productions. And so what Autodoc does is it gives you the promise of eDiscovery, where you're eliminating document review or streamlining it a lot for the 99% of cases that don't warrant that kind of labor and lift. And it's because of that, it's also better than eDiscovery. So if you put a 1,000-page document in Autodoc and a 10,000-page document in eDiscovery, you're going to be spending hours and hours in that eDiscovery platform, and it's only going to tell you relevance. But with Autodoc, we're giving you a better solution because we skip relevance. Because if a document is responsive to a request for production, it is relevant. It's harder to find responsiveness than it is relevancy. So we're able to skip the entire relevancy analysis by only collecting the documents that are responsive to the request. And by the way, that is where all relevant documents should end up, or at least a portion of those relevant documents should end up. So by going to the actual text that the attorneys need to write when responding, as opposed to the task before that, which is document review, we're able to skip relevancy and just give the users exactly what documents are responsive. And because of that, we have things that TAR, technology assisted review, or AI eDiscovery can't do. Like we can find a needle in the haystack where if you have 10,000 pages and there's only one doc that's responsive, we'll find that one doc. We can also tell you if there are no documents in the production, and then you can collect that document from the client or click a button explaining why you can't produce that document. Whereas TAR or eDiscovery, they can give you confidence intervals where they say, here's 10,000 documents that we're 70% sure are not relevant. That does not imbue me with a lot of confidence. And as an attorney, I would still look through those documents almost certainly. So we built Autodoc as a very novel approach to document review with the goal of learning from the mistakes of eDiscovery AI and giving our users the ability to verify our results in a much more granular way than confidence intervals, and then give them work product that legitimately would have taken them weeks in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, you've spoken like a true former litigator, that as I know you are, in terms of explaining the difference between relevance and responsiveness, because they are different, and I'm not sure all attorneys always understand that, and that's an important difference. What about that privilege issue? I mean, how do you protect against Autodoc retrieving and producing or including a document that may be privileged?
Okay, so that's another great question. So we don't check for, in the first version, there's going to be no checks for privilege and there's going to be no redaction procedures in Briefpoint. Those will be added. So we generally anticipate that our users will redact and then check for privilege before uploading into Briefpoint. And yeah, maybe they will use an eDiscovery vendor to do that. But what we do have is the ability to search by name, where in the document list, you can, or the production, you can search a name and then we'll show you in as quickly we'll release version after version 1, we'll show you every document that contains that person's name or relates to that person. And the reason I'm talking about this is because you can put in an attorney name or the name of a law firm or the name of a paralegal and then see all the documents where they exist, check them within Briefpoint, and then you can mark them as privileged in Briefpoint. And when you mark them as privileged, we have this whole list of privileged marked documents that you can use for the basis of a privilege log to the extent one is necessary. But that's not going to be automated. And I don't know that, and maybe it should be, but at the same time, there's some things that we don't care to automate because it's so important. So we just want to give the users the tools to do it on their own very quickly. And that's one of, for example, with RFAs, in response to RFAs, we'll never automate the substantive response to a request for admission. Number one, that response is either admit or deny, or qualified admit, qualified deny. There's only 4 real options. And number 2, those things are so important for the case that you don't really want AI to do those types of things for you and trust that it did it right.
So I've uploaded the documents and I've uploaded the request for production, and I'm on a particular request. It's showing me the documents it's found. Can I then at that point exercise some sort of editing control over that? I mean, I can say, I want this one, I don't want that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to in the eDiscovery AI, where it says, hey, here's 10,000 documents where 70% relevant. It's kind of like a trust me bro system. And we don't want a trust me bro system. We want a trust and verify system. So when we find documents, you click find documents. It says we found 113 documents. With that pop-up or that notification, there's a button called verify. And we always say, don't trust AI, verify. When you click verify, you can obviously see the documents and then review them. But more importantly, we bring our user to a foldering structure. And now This foldering structure contains all the documents by conceptual folders like medical records, contracts, communications, etc. And then it actually goes down 3 or 4 levels. So there's a hierarchy of folders to group the subfolders and everything else. It looks exactly like a document management system, what a very well organized one. And the best part about that is that it's automatically created. So by Briefpoint, so we create this foldering structure. And there's a reason I'm explaining this. When you upload the documents, you upload the complaint as well. So we understand the case, and then we group all the PDFs and the documents into these folders. And by the way, if one PDF has 20 documents, we'll actually split that PDF into 20 documents, title those documents, and then folderize them as well so that it's more granular. And the reason we show the user this foldering structure is because when we find the answer, when we find those 100 documents responsive, we show them a map where we show exactly what folders and where our AI looked for the documents. And critically, we show them where we didn't look. So if you see 2 folders and one is medical records and another is contracts, and the question's asking for all medical records, you go in, the AI looked through the medical records folder, and you can see that the AI didn't look in the contracts folder. But because you know that contracts are not responsive to this request, you don't need to review that folder. Instead, you should be reviewing the medical record folders where maybe something wasn't produced. And we highlight those as well. So we give the user a map showing exactly what we did. We highlight places they should definitely be checking our work, and we allow them to skip over those document review sections that are clearly not required to answer the question, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. No, it sounds really great. And then what's the ultimate sort of production output that I'm going to send to my opponent who made the request for production in the first place?
2 things. Number 1, it's a baited production package where at the end of your review in Briefpoint, we ask you, okay, what do you want your Bates numbers to look like? So maybe it's like NPW and starting number 0001, whatever. When you do that, you download your file, a zip file, so a folder that has all of the responsive PDFs with all of their Bates numbers and the title of each document in a folder that you can then serve. And number 2, we give you a Word document, which is an RFP response formatted for your jurisdiction's rules and customs. And we have the preliminary statement, the caption, the general objections, every request, all the responses and everything. And in the responses, it says, it cites to the responsive documents by their Bates numbers. So we have the most accurate method of identifying responsive documents. Every single request has all the documents responsive to it cited by Bates.
And I assume it's a Word document, not a PDF, so that the lawyer can then edit it or
plain
make
old
any
Word
changes.
doc.
Yeah. What else would you like people to know about this?
So this is really a Autodoc version 1, which is RFP response automation, is a foundation, a structure that we're going to be building a ton of products on top of. The next one we're launching will find answers to interrogatories within the production, where you ask a question and then it looks for those documents in the production that would have the answer. And then once we get there, we say, okay, find me the answer to this interrogatory in full or in part, show me where it was. And then we collect that portion of the document that is responsive to the interrogatory and all the other places and other documents we found it, compile it into a substantive response, and cite to the exact places in the production where we found it. What we're building, and then that's also going to be the basis for our redaction protocol, where you can say redact all of these things, and then we find all of those things, and we say, okay, click redact, and then we automatically redact it. But what we're building on that is a system to find answers to questions and things. And what we ultimately want to do next year is allow users to record on their phone any stated question in court, in a deposition, and then we'll find the answer to that question in the production, show it to our users, and the user can use that to maybe answer a question that the judge has during a hearing, or maybe use it to show that the witness is lying or that they said something different during their deposition or in an email they sent 10 years ago. So we're trying to build a system that finds answers to questions and things with the goal of giving attorneys the ability to be intimately familiar with the facts of the case, which is the hallmark of a great attorney, without doing any of the...
Right. Without having to do the scut work of digging through all the files and finding all of that stuff. It's propound to discovery, respond to discovery, the attorneys are going to be spending their afternoons at the.
Yeah, I mean, that's the dream, right? That's what how it used to be before email.
That sounds great. And this is available when to customers?
So we're currently in our closed beta. So if you go to briefpoint.ai/Autodoc or briefpoint.ai and click on Autodoc, you can join the closed beta for early access. It should be launched to everyone. And if you already have an account, it's no additional cost. It's just added to your account in early October.
Congratulations. This sounds really, really cool. And I think you've probably got some lawyers listening to this right now salivating to try it themselves, because it really sounds like it saves a lot of time and effort for them. Thanks a lot. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Bob. Always a pleasure.
That does it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube at LawNextPR. Just search for that. We're also on the LawNext Legal Tech directory under the Resources tab. This is Bob Ambrogi. Thanks for being with us today.